Hey, it's Vanessa, and the topic of today is called Grace, Grace, Grace. And in it, I'm going to be sharing with you about making space for grace in your life, what grace is, and how intentionally connecting with the energetic signature of grace can be not just incredibly transformative, but also the alchemical ingredient you might be missing in terms of expanding your life path in the direction that you're looking to head in. Now, I'm going to run this offering the share a little bit differently than I do in some of the other videos and talks that I've done before, whereas I'm coming in without a plan. I have this guiding light topic that has been really sitting, kind of in my own heart space for the last week or so. And I'm going to allow it to just move through me and see what wants to be shared. So we're going on the improv path with this conversation. And before I get into the details of it, I would love to invite you to like, comment, share, click to get notifications, subscribe, all that good social media stuff if you happen to be watching this on the YouTube channel. And if you are tuning into this talk from the Check the Energy podcast, please do follow, subscribe, download, listen, all the things over there to go ahead and get this out to more people as well. So thank you for your presence. Thank you for tuning in. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and get started. Though I will say one more thing, that if you do happen to be tuning in from the podcast, you might want to hop over to the YouTube video so you can see the visual background with this. It feels very much a representation of grace from, that visual imagery perspective, which is actually very connected to grace itself. And I'll share more about that in just a moment. So before I begin, I would like to invite you to simply be in this moment. And by doing that, this is an invitation I'm sure that you may have heard of before. If you've ever done a meditation or a visualization, is at the beginning, you're offered or invited to come into the space and come into your body. And it seems like such a funny invitation to even offer up. And at the same time, how much of our energy and focus is usually kind of, I want to say, coagulated around certain areas of, our body. Like sometimes we even hear that in our language, right? Like, oh, I've got to carrying this weight on my chest, or I've just got so much. You can tell when people have so much activity going on around their headspace. And to be present in this moment is to actually allow the energy to flow without impediment, to flow just very freely throughout all aspects of your being, really, right? The cells of your body could flow freely through your lymphatic system, through your blood, through your breath, through your energetic field and your soul's cellular memory. It can flow through your thoughts and your feelings, and you just have more of a state, really, actually, of grace. Grace is so much about allowing yourself to be with the moment, whatever is happening, right? So many times our suffering comes from being in resistance or reaction to either what's happening externally or what's happening internally within us. Sometimes you could be in the best of external circumstances, but your insides, right, your mind, your heart might be all wound up, and then you often get mad at yourself or frustrated or whatever, because you're like, oh my gosh, these circumstances are so great, and yet here I am being all wound up about it. And instead, being present really invites you into that space where your power actually lies, and you can simply be aware of energy moving, that the energy isn't good, it isn't bad, it just is what it is, and it's very dynamic, always changing and always moving within your system, even in the times where you feel maybe stuck or low frequency or weighed down, or whatever is going on for you, or however you're experiencing the energy. It truly actually is always moving. And just like, you know, just like your breath and your lymphatic system and your blood system, like just like all of these different elements that make you who you are and allow you to experience life, it is quite literally the state of grace. It is always there. It's always happening, whether you notice it or not. And that's part of what I wanted to bring to you in this conversation today, is that we are always living in a state of grace. It is nothing that we necessarily need to get to or make a goal around. I mean, we can certainly play with our amazing tool of visualization and imagination to invoke more of a connection with the state of grace. But I want you to actually sit in the philosophy, the very rich philosophy that grace is always happening. Grace is who you are. Grace is the core and light of all that is. And what that concept, idea, experience can bring you is more of a state of connection and rest and ease, and really less of the dynamic where you are fighting with the moment for some reason or other. So much of, I would say, maybe a theme per my own unique design, right? Everybody's got their own unique human design and their soul blueprint that they come in here with. And a lot of the themes that are up for me and my soul group, and just have always been for the course of my life, because it's just part of the design, has to do with power. Where do you source your power from? And how can you transform the challenges in your life, right? Really taking that alchemy principle and going from crap to compost, or lead to gold, or however you want to phrase it, but taking the ingredients of your actual life and changing them in such a way, alchemizing them in such a way that you come out on the other end with a deep sense of empowerment and connection and liberation. And though I would say I love to come up with processes, I love to make lists and be very pragmatic and practical and create goals. That certified coach in me just really loves to come out and play in that way. That without that real cognizant awareness and connection to grace, there is, I want to say, it's like this, it's the special sauce, you know what I mean? Like, it's the thing that fills the light into the plan. It's what brings the flavor. It's like, have you ever laid in a body of water and felt completely, utterly supported? Like, where what I'm talking about, where you're floating on your back, and by some sort of magical state of grace, and I'm sure there's some very specific detailed explanation as to how we can even float on water in the first place, but the feeling that it creates is as if you're laying on light, right? It's as if the buoyancy, that the combination of you and the water, when you choose to enter into that position of laying on your back and floating in the water and just simply looking up, it's like you become that conduit between the sky above that you see and the earth in the form of water, right? You've got this this layer of water, and then the earth below that, and you are, it's like a, oh, it's like an alchemy sandwich or something, you know what I mean? It's like, look at these amazing ingredients that create the richness of your experience. I mean, that's a sandwich that I want to eat. Like, that's an experience I want to be part of. And that deep state of relaxation and trust and release and being able to simply let it all go. Just let it all go. I know you've had that experience at least once in your life. And I'd like you to invite it back in, because not only does it feel really nice, I'm not just after the dopamine high here, but not only, that is lovely, but it restores you. It restores you, it nourishes you, but it really like restores your memory. I mean, part of what we're experiencing here in this interesting plane of reality that we exist within is oftentimes we get into that state of stuckness when we forget who we are, and we forget the power that we do have, and we forget why we're here. Now, it's a whole different topic to go into the concept of the memory wipe and why that happens or takes place, and how we intentionally re-engage the memory wipe over and over again, but to actually choose a different path, and to allow grace to remind us of our true nature, and to allow grace to hold us in the moment with no agenda other than to experience the delight of and sensation of being in a physical, cute little human avatar, of connecting with the elements of the earth, of infusing your day-to-day reality with this, much broader, much higher frequency experience of light, of the light that you actually are, in addition to the way that you are currently presenting as a physical human being, right? We are both. And we can't forget the grace, and we can't forget the light, because that is the nature of who we are. And when we do, we end up feeling stuck, and we loop, and we chase our own tails. And that's not the reality that I'm personally interested in. Right? What about you? I don't know. I want to offer it up also that, I'm just kind of free floating, like the whole idea of free floating on the water here, as I roll with what else I want to share with you around grace, 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 as this living prayer experience that we can have and be in the world, is to think of grace as a bridge, right? So, as many of you know, if you happen to watch these videos or pay attention to any of the shares that I do on the podcast or on social media, my whole shtick is kind of about the paradigm shift, right? This is my thing. This is what I talk about. And I have a particular perspective, and, how do I say, I mean, like I'm really intentionally looking to connect with a specific group of people within the larger concept of the paradigm shift. I'm sure you've heard me mention the healers, the teachers, the messengers who focus on transformation, who know they're here to be the bridge between the old and the new, right? Those are my people. Other people are cool too, but those are the ones that I tend to work with and collaborate with, and discover a lot of richness in the overlap that we share in terms of our vision and our purpose and our mission. And so the paradigm shift is really about, which is what we're currently in, right? So we have the old paradigm that focuses more on purely physical reality and the systems and the structures that are more rooted in limitation and fear and hierarchical systems, right? Or a hierarchical approach to things. And moving into a space of really looking at things more expansively from a holistic perspective, from a deeply rooted and empowered perspective, very connected to the spiritual reality perspective, right? So it's a much more expansive model, and those systems and structures in the old paradigm, they're currently in a breakdown, and the systems and structures of the new paradigm are currently breaking through. They are emerging, right? But the new paradigm isn't a place that we like all of a sudden arrive and we get to. It's what we get to create, right? We are the literal bridge between the old and the new. And so what I wanted to suggest in this conversation here is that grace is also the bridge. Grace is very much a part of the new paradigm approach. To see grace is to see, the divine source energy that each of us has within us, that we are. Grace is to see the, I want to say the true nature of reality versus, a false programmed, inverted type of approach that we might see promoted a bit more on a mainstream media. Grace is the magic that we can't explain or articulate, but we can only feel. Grace is the synchronicity. Grace is the intuition. Grace is the invisible golden thread that connects all of us. Grace is, the beautiful paradoxical nature of life. It's the comedy and the tragedy. It's the larger container that holds the comedy and tragedy of life. Grace is the bridge. If you're trying to create the new paradigm, even that language, if you're trying to create the new paradigm, stop trying. You know what I mean? Like take a breath, be in grace. Know that grace is supporting you. Know that grace is always happening. Know that grace is an inherent part of the creation and destruction process, right? The new paradigm, the creation of it isn't always pretty and woo-woo and not grounded. It's very grounded, and it's messy, and it is disruptive, and it's chaotic. And in those types of circumstances, grace comes in handy, to grant yourself the grace to have a low moment and not react to that or be in resistance to that, to grant yourself the grace to know that things will pass, to grant yourself the grace that you are in a state of recalibration and reconstruction and upgrading your identity and how you show up in the world, perhaps upgrading actually how you operate. What are your foundational systems and structures? We often forget, that it's not just a paradigm shift that's happening outside of us. We are the paradigm shift, literally us, the individual person, as well as the systems and the structures. Why not have grace guide that process? And these are simply some thoughts to consider. And you can always take what resonates and drop the rest. But what I hope more than anything is that they begin to activate your own thoughts. They begin to activate your consciousness in a new way. They begin to help you remember more of the truth of who you are and why you're here. That talking about grace helps you begin to recall all the experiences in your life where you felt like grace was making its presence known to you, that you unexpectedly felt very loved and cherished by somebody, or you felt that it absolutely did not matter, all the wrongs that you've ever done, that you can release those, or that you've experienced, that you can release that, you can forgive yourself and forgive other people and just simply let it go. That grace has always been with you and will always be with you. And that grace is the foundation and the bridge for this paradigm shift, for this evolution, for this expansion of consciousness, for this new way of doing things differently. It's both new and it's ancient, the ways in which we're being invited to show up now. And some days you might feel very grateful for that. And some days you might feel very frustrated about that. Some days you might feel very focused and directed around your next steps. And some days you might have absolutely no clue and be frustrated with the process. Grace is still with you and in you and surrounding you on all of those days, before you were born, while you're here, and after you leave. So I'd like you to always remember that. I'd like this conversation to be a seed plant for your consciousness, to always remember that in this lifetime or the next or the last, whichever timeline you're operating from. So that is what I want to share with you today. Grace, grace, grace as a living prayer and a way of being in the world, to help you remember your true nature, who you are, what you're here to do, and how you can bring a new kind of energy to the larger conversation and shift that we're currently in. So thanks so much for watching, listening, tuning in. Really appreciate your presence. May grace grace all of your days from this point forward. With that, thank you so much. I will talk with you again soon. Please do like, comment, subscribe, share, click to get notifications, all that good social media stuff that gets us out to more people and beats those finicky algorithms. Thanks. See you.